Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive deep into day 2 of LSD's journey through the brain.
Absolutely. Let's unpack those receptors, especially 5-HT2A, 5-HT1A, and the ones tangled up with dopamine.
LSD's subtlety always fascinated me. It's not just an on-off switch for those receptors, is it?
Not at all. It's more like a fine-tuning, a nuanced dance that leads to these unique effects.
Okay, so before we get lost in the details, can you remind us about serotonin? Why is it so crucial here?
Imagine serotonin as this conductor in your brain, making sure everything from your mood to your perceptions is in harmony.
And LSD comes along and starts messing with the conductor's instructions.
In a way, yes. It targets specific serotonin receptors, with 5-HT2A being one of its main focuses. But here's the catch. It acts as what we call a partial agonist.
Partial agonist, so not a full-blown activation.
Exactly. Think of a dimmer switch. A full agonist is like flicking the light all the way on. LSD as a partial agonist is like adjusting the dimmer, creating a more subtle effect.
So it's fine-tuning the receptor's activity instead of just blasting it.
Precisely. This fine-tuning triggers a cascade of events inside the cell, what we call signaling cascades. They ultimately impact how those brain cells, the neurons, communicate.
Signaling cascades. Things are getting a bit technical here.
It's like a chain reaction, really. When LSD binds to that 5-HT2A receptor, it activates this specific G protein called GAC.
So LSD binds, the G protein gets the message. Then what?
GAC kicks off this whole cascade, leading to the production of molecules like IP3 and DAG. They're key players in how cells respond to these signals.
IP3, DAG. Okay, I'm trying to keep up. What's their role in the grand scheme of things?
Well, it ultimately leads to increased activity in the cortex, that part of your brain responsible for thinking, making decisions, processing all that sensory information.
So that's where those LSD experiences start to emerge, how we make sense of the world around us.
Exactly. This heightened cortical activity, fueled by LSD's interaction with 5-HT2A, it disrupts the brain's usual filtering process.
Like trying to process everything at once, all those senses amplified.
That's one way to think about it. The brain struggles to make sense of this flood of information, leading to altered perceptions, those so-called hallucinations.
Makes sense, like piecing together a puzzle with too many pieces.
A very colorful puzzle, for sure. And LSD doesn't stop at perception. It goes deeper into our emotions.
Right, because LSD also interacts with these 5-HT1A receptor, another big player in the serotonin system, right?
It does. But LSD's interaction with 5-HT1A is more complex, more nuanced. It can be an agonist and an antagonist.
Wait, hold on. Agonist and antagonist. How can it be both?
Imagine an agonist is stepping on the gas pedal, activating the receptor. An antagonist is hitting the brakes, blocking it.
So with 5-HT1A, it's sometimes gas, sometimes brakes.
A fitting analogy. This duality adds to the complexity of emotional experiences with LSD. Some might experience euphoria, others anxiety, all influenced by this intricate dance.
So many factors at play here, not just which receptor it binds to, but also the dose, the person's brain chemistry, everything.
Absolutely. And there's another layer to consider. LSD's interaction with the dopamine system.
Dopamine, that's all about reward and pleasure. Right?
It's a bit more complex than that, but yes, dopamine is involved. LSD modulates these pathways called CAM-ME pathways, essential for how brain cells communicate and respond to signals.
Okay, so LSD's tweaking those conversations between brain cells, not just through serotonin, but dopamine too.
Right. This interaction, particularly with the D2 receptor, is believed to enhance those sensory and mood changes we've discussed.
So it's like a multi-layered symphony with serotonin, dopamine, and each individual's unique brain chemistry playing a part. Fascinating.
A beautiful analogy for an intricate process.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm finally starting to grasp the complexities of LSD's interactions with the brain.
Excellent. Next time, we'll dive deeper into those signaling cascades and explore their role in those unique day 2 effects of LSD.
I'm ready to keep exploring. This is truly fascinating stuff.
Welcome back to our deep dive.
We left off talking about LSD as a partial agonist at the 5-HT2A receptor, like fine-tuning with a dimmer switch, and those signaling cascades, right?
Precisely. At the heart of those fascinating perceptual shifts LSD is known for.
You mentioned G proteins being crucial. I'd love to understand their role better.
They're like internal messengers within the cell, relaying the signal from that receptor to the cell's inner workings.
So LSD binds to the 5-HT2A receptor. The G protein springs to action, carrying the message inward.
Like a relay race, LSD passes the baton. Then that G protein sets off this cascade of events.
And GAC, that specific type, is particularly important here, right? Why is that?
When LSD activates GAC, it triggers production of IP3 and DAG, Think of them as messengers too, but within the cell, carrying the signal further downstream.
IP3 and DAG. We touched on them, but I got a bit lost in the technical details. What makes them so important in the LSD story?
Imagine a city with traffic lights controlling the flow. IP3 and DAG are like signals adjusting those lights, changing the patterns of brain activity.
So they're not just passive messengers, they're actively changing how the brain operates. But how does that link to those perceptual changes, those LSD effects we're exploring?
Well, take IP3. It triggers the release of calcium ions within the cell. Calcium that acts as a second messenger.
Second messenger.
Right, it activates various enzymes, influences lots of cellular processes,
Yeah.
like flipping a switch, powering up parts of the cell's machinery.
Okay, I think I'm getting that. And DAG.
Yeah.
Where does that fit into this cellular dance?
DAG activates an enzyme called protein kinase C, or PKC for short. PKC is like a sculptor, modifying the shape and function of other proteins within the cell.
Sculpting proteins, that sounds pretty powerful.
It is. These modifications can change how those neurons talk to each other, contributing to that altered perception, the cognitive flexibility people experience with LSD.
So it's like a domino effect, right?
Hmm.
LSD binds, G protein activated, IP3 and DAG produced. Then calcium and PKC start modifying other proteins, ultimately changing how the brain processes information.
You got it. And remember, this is happening in a network of billions of interconnected neurons. These tiny changes at the molecular level cascade throughout the brain, leading to those big shifts in perception and consciousness.
It's incredible how such small changes can have such a huge impact on how we experience the world.
It speaks to the amazing connection between our biology and our consciousness. And keep in mind, we've just been focused on the 5-HT2A receptor. LSD's interaction with other receptors, like 5-HT1A, adds even more complexity, especially on day 2.
Oh, right. You said LSD's effects on 5-HT1A can be more varied, sometimes agonist, sometimes antagonist, which I'm still wrapping my head around.
Think of it this way. With 5-HT2A, LSD is mainly a modulator, fine-tuning. With 5-HT1A, it's like LSD has a toolbox, choosing different tools depending on the context.
So sometimes activating, like stepping on the gas, other times blocking, like hitting the brake.
A great analogy. And this variability likely explains those diverse emotional experiences with LSD, from euphoria to introspection, sometimes even anxiety. Remember, day 2 effects might be different from that initial experience.
So 5-HT1A is like the mood knob, and LSD is playing a more complex tune there.
Exactly. And the tune can change based on the dose, individual brain chemistry, all sorts of factors.
Really highlights those individual differences. One person's bliss could be another's challenge.
Absolutely. Underscores the importance of responsible use and harm reduction with psychedelics. It's the individual, their mindset, the environment, not just the drug itself.
This is all so fascinating, but my brain's getting a bit overloaded with all these pathways and interactions.
It's a lot to take in. You don't need to memorize all the technicalities. Grasping those general principles, how LSD interacts with these receptor systems, how those contribute to the overall experience, that's key.
Okay, that's reassuring. But before we move on, I'm curious. We've talked perception and mood. What about therapeutic potential? I've heard about LSD being studied for anxiety, depression, even addiction.
A great question, and a hot area of research right now. While we focused on the psychedelic effects, those same mechanisms might hold the key to therapeutic applications.
How so? Could you give us a glimpse into how LSD might help with those conditions?
Of course. Next time, we'll delve into those potential therapeutic applications, especially LSD's ability to promote neuroplasticity, facilitate personal growth.
Looking forward to it. The idea that something causing such profound shifts in consciousness could also hold healing potential, that's amazing.
It is. Speaks to the power of psychedelics to deepen our understanding of the mind and maybe even address some of those toughest mental health challenges.
Back for more on LSD's journey through the brain.
We've mapped out those intricate interactions with serotonin and dopamine receptors.
And those cascading signals leading to those altered perceptions and mood shifts, right?
Right. Now let's shift our focus to LSD's therapeutic potential.
You mentioned neuroplasticity earlier. I'm really curious about that.
Neuroplasticity, it's the brain's incredible ability to change, adapt, rewire itself throughout life.
So it's not this fixed, unchanging structure. Our brains can actually rewire themselves.
Absolutely. And LSD seems to enhance this neuroplasticity, creating a window for growth and healing.
That's incredible. How does LSD actually promote this rewiring?
Remember those signaling cascades? They don't just temporarily alter brain activity, they can cause lasting changes, affecting gene expression, even protein synthesis.
So LSD is like flipping switches at the genetic level. influencing which proteins are made, how those brain cells connect.
You got it. Those changes can lead to new synapses forming, those connections between neurons, and strengthen existing ones.
Like encouraging the brain to grow new branches, more connections, maybe breaking free from rigid thought patterns that can contribute to mental health issues.
That's the idea. Studies show LSD can increase dendritic spine density, those tiny protrusions where synapses form.
So it's encouraging the brain to branch out, literally, creating more opportunities for communication between those neurons.
Exactly. This increased connectivity could be key to LSD's therapeutic effects, helping the brain rewire in a more flexible, adaptive way.
Makes sense, like giving the brain a fresh start, a chance to break free from those negative feedback loops that can keep us stuck.
And it's not just rewiring on a cellular level. LSD seems to facilitate a kind of psychological rewiring too, a shift in perspective leading to lasting changes in how we see the world, ourselves.
That's where those mystical experiences come in, right? The feelings of interconnectedness, awe, wonder.
Precisely. Profoundly transformative experiences leading to deeper self-understanding, greater appreciation for life, a renewed sense of purpose.
Like connecting with something bigger than ourselves, expanding our sense of self, our place in the universe.
And these insights can have a ripple effect, changing how we relate to ourselves, others, the world around us.
Especially for those struggling with addiction, breaking free from those destructive patterns, finding meaning beyond substance abuse.
There's growing evidence for that. Studies show LSD-assisted therapy can be effective for various addictions, from alcohol and nicotine to opioids, even behavioral addictions like gambling.
That's amazing. Not just managing symptoms, but addressing those underlying psychological, even spiritual roots of addiction.
And it's not limited to addiction. LSD shows promise for anxiety, depression, PTSD too.
I've heard about studies using it to help process traumatic memories, reduce their emotional intensity.
Right. LSD seems to create a safe space to revisit those memories without being overwhelmed by fear, anxiety, allowing for a more integrated healing process.
Like rewriting those personal narratives, reframing traumatic experiences, reclaiming power and resilience.
Beautifully put. This potential for deep healing, transformation, it's what makes LSD such a compelling research subject.
But it's important to remember it's a powerful substance, right?
Yeah.
Use with caution, respect.
Absolutely. Any therapeutic use should be in a safe, controlled setting with proper support and integration.
It's not just about taking the drug, it's the whole journey. Preparation, the experience, integrating those insights into life.
And LSD isn't a magic bullet. It's a tool that can facilitate healing, growth, but it's not a replacement for therapy or other support.
The key is integration. Using LSD to unlock those insights, those shifts, then doing the work to make them last.
Exactly. Harnessing its power to catalyze change, then nurturing that change through therapy, mindfulness, a supportive community.
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive into LSD. Its intricate brain interactions, potential therapeutic benefits, and the crucial importance of responsible use and integration.
It's been a fascinating exploration. I hope our listeners now have a deeper appreciation for LSD's complexity, its potential.
I hope they take away that LSD is a powerful tool capable of both harm and healing.
And responsible use demands understanding its effects, prioritizing safety, recognizing that healing and personal growth are ongoing journeys.
As we wrap up, I encourage everyone to keep exploring, delve deeper into the research, approach this field with open minds and critical thinking.
And remember, the most profound journey is often the one within.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into LSD. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring that vast landscape of human consciousness.